Can a Christian be cremated? This is a highly charged question that can and does cause discord in grieving families. But yes, if done respectfully and in recognition of God, cremation is proper. What happens to our bodies after death in no way affects our eternal destination. Genesis tells us that all physical bodies suffer disintegration, whether through decay or fire. Dust you are, and to dust you will return. God is all-powerful, and the resurrection will occur regardless of what happens to us after death. That said, there are reasonable arguments both for and against cremation. The Bible has over 200 accounts of burial and very few accounts of cremation. Burial was the accepted practice, and heroes of faith from Abel onward were buried. Abraham made careful arrangements to buy a family crypt. Indeed, Jesus went into the grave before his resurrection. Ezekiel 37 describes a field of dry bones being brought back to life to form a vast army. God could bring ashes or dust to life, but some say it was significant that it was bones and not ashes or dust in Ezekiel. Others note that where the Bible speaks of cremation, it's usually in a negative context. The first mention of cremation in the Bible is in Samuel, where King Saul's body was burned and his bones were buried. Saul had been mutilated at death, and he was a king who strayed from God's ways. His life and burial was not a positive model to emulate. In Joshua we read of Achan, who broke God's law and was punished by death. He was burned along with all his possessions. And in Leviticus, burning a body is seen as a special mark of disrespect. Church history can also be seen as not favoring cremation. Early Christians did not practice cremation. They felt that as the body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, burning a body is an unnecessary desecration of the image of God in man. Indeed, death by burning was seen as an extra punishment for believers. Christian believers were burned by their enemies to spite them and their beliefs. Nero is supposed to have lit his garden with burning pyres of Christians. John Wycliffe, the great Bible translator, was dug up and burned by his enemies after a Christian burial. Historically, then, it can be argued that cremation is portrayed in a negative light. Of course, one response is that burning as a punishment is very different than burning as a respectful cremation as part of the grieving process. And that is true. A further response is the laws and customs of the Old Testament, save for the moral laws, no longer apply. And that is also quite true. There is no prohibition on cremation. Cremation has no impact on the resurrection of the body. The resurrected body is a new spiritual creation. God can fit the believer anew with an incorruptible spiritual body, regardless of cremation. Cremation is a matter for which the Bible offers no explicit direction, and there being no definite prohibition on cremation, it is lawful. Accordingly, the decision to cremate is to be left to each believer, recognizing they must be guided by the Holy Spirit. Whatever decision they arrive at should be respected by others. As Paul said, do nothing from rivalry or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interest, but to the interest of others. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, please like and subscribe.